You ever have those quiet nights when you just sit there, maybe staring at the ceiling, and you start to wonder, who's really in here? Like, who's the one thinking all these thoughts, feeling all these feelings? You can sense something watching, right? Something behind your eyes, quietly aware of everything. And yet, when you really try to find that someone, it sort of slips through your fingers. You can't quite hold it. Maybe that's the beginning of something deeper. Maybe that's where peace begins. Hey, it's good to have you here. If you find these quiet talks about life, awareness, and the strange beauty of being human meaningful, take a second to subscribe. It helps me keep making more of these reflections, not to teach, but to share what it feels like to just be alive, together. You know, I think we all live with this quiet assumption that there's someone inside, me, sitting somewhere behind the eyes, steering the ship, making choices, watching the world unfold. It feels so obvious that we hardly ever stop to look closer. I mean, how could there not be? There's thinking, remembering, dreaming, deciding. All of it feels like it's happening to someone. But every now and then, when life slows down, something strange happens. We notice that the someone we think we are isn't so solid. Maybe it's in the middle of a deep walk at night, or when we're watching the rain fall outside a cafe window. There's this soft awareness like the world is happening. Sounds, smells, feelings. And yet, you can't find where you begin and where everything else ends. For thousands of years, people have tried to understand this mystery. And one man, a long time ago, the Buddha, whispered something that still feels shocking today. He said there is no one behind your eyes, that there is no fixed self hiding somewhere in your thoughts, no unchanging soul sitting in the middle of it all, just life happening, just awareness, moving like a river, different from one moment to the next. At first, that sounds kind of scary, because if there's no one inside, then who's living your life? Who's making choices, loving people, dreaming of the future? But maybe what he was trying to show us wasn't a loss. It was freedom. Maybe he wasn't saying, you don't exist. Maybe he was saying, you're not trapped. Think of it this way. When you look at a flame, it seems like one solid thing, right? But if you watch closely, you realize it's never still. It's dancing, flickering, changing every second. That's how we are. We're not one frozen person inside one frozen story. We're always moving, always becoming. We're 1,000 little moments flowing together so smoothly that we start to believe it's all just one me. Sometimes I sit with my eyes closed and try to find that me. I look for the person inside who's supposed to be thinking these thoughts. And the more I look, the more I see just thoughts rising and falling, feelings moving like clouds, sound of the world outside, but no center, just awareness. It's kind of peaceful, actually, like realizing the movie you're watching doesn't need someone behind the screen. It just plays. You see, the Buddhist teaching, this idea of no self, wasn't about rejecting yourself. It was about understanding that you don't have to cling so tightly to who you think you are. You don't have to fight so hard to keep the story of me perfect or fixed, because it's okay if it changes. It's supposed to. Maybe you're not losing yourself. Maybe you're finding out that you were never stuck in the first place. And yet it's strange, isn't it? Because even when you understand this idea, even when you see how everything's constantly changing, there's still that soft whisper inside. I am. That feeling that someone's still here, living through it all. There's an old story about a monk named 𝐂𝐚𝐬𝐿. He was very sick near the end of his life, but his mind was clear and wise. The other monks asked him, "You see yourself inside any part of you, in your body, your feelings, your thoughts? And he said, no, I don't. Then they asked, do you see a self outside of them? Again, he said no. But then they asked, then why do you still say I am? And he smiled gently and said, because there's still a faint scent left, like a flower after it's been picked. That story always stays with me, because it feels so human. Even when we understand that the I we carry isn't solid, something about that sense of being, of existing, still lingers. And maybe that's okay. Maybe it's not something we have to get rid of. Maybe it's something to simply notice, like watching light fade on a horizon, knowing it's not permanent, but still beautiful. In my own life, I've had moments like that, standing by the ocean, watching the waves, feeling so small yet so connected. I wasn't thinking about who I was or what I needed to do next. There was just movement, sound, air. And in that space, I felt lighter, not gone, just free from the pressure of being someone. Maybe that's what the Buddha meant when he said we suffer, because we cling. We hold on so tightly to the idea of me that we forget to actually live. We build walls around our identity, protecting it from change, when in truth, change is the most natural thing there is. Life isn't meant to be owned. It's meant to be experienced. So when you hear that strange phrase, there's no one behind your eyes, maybe it's not meant to take something away. Maybe it's an invitation. An invitation to breathe a little deeper, to soften a little, and to look again at the world, not through the lens of me versus everything else, but as one big, beautiful unfolding. If you've ever lost yourself in a sunset, or in a song, or in the eyes of someone you love, you've already touched that space, that moment where the I fades and only experience remains. That's what this is pointing to. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to earn it. It's already happening, right here, right now, in this breath, in this heartbeat, in this quiet moment between words. Maybe that's why this teaching feels less like a doctrine and more like a homecoming. It's not about trying to erase yourself. It's about realizing you were never separate from life to begin with. You were never standing outside it, watching it happen. You are the happening. You are the breath. You are the awareness behind the eyes, not as a person, but as a space everything appears in. So tonight, when things get quiet, maybe just close your eyes and ask yourself, who's really here? Don't rush to answer. Don't think too hard. Just notice what it feels like to be aware, to hear, to feel, to breathe. You might find that the answer isn't a word or an idea. It's a silence that holds everything gently. And maybe that's enough. If this way of seeing speaks to you, if it gives you even a small bit of calm or curiosity, I'd be grateful if you subscribed so we can keep walking through these quiet corners of awareness together. Not to find all the answers, but to sit with the questions. Because sometimes it's not about figuring out who's behind your eyes. It's about realizing that whoever's looking was never separate from what's seen. Sometimes when I look in a mirror, I catch my own eyes and feel a strange kind of distance, like I'm meeting someone I've been pretending to know all my life. The face looks familiar, sure, but behind it, there's something vast and quiet, something that can't be captured by any reflection. It's almost like the one who's looking isn't the one in the mirror at all. And maybe that's the secret we keep missing. We think the reflection is me. We think the story is solid. But the real mystery is the one who's watching. The one who never gets old, never changes. The one who just is. You can try to hold on to who you think you are, your name, your memories, your dreams, your pain. But every one of those things shifts. The name was given to you. The memories fade or rearrange themselves. And the dreams keep evolving as life moves forward. Even the pain that wants to find you starts to loosen its grip when you stop feeding it with stories. Everything you call me is changing always, and that's not something to be afraid of. That's life. That's the dance. There's a soft realization that comes when you start seeing yourself not as the dancer, but as the dance itself. You stop trying to control the rhythm, and you start to feel the music that's been playing all along. It's not something outside of you. It's you unfolding beat by beat, breath by breath. And maybe that's why so many of us are tired. We've been trying to direct the music instead of listening to it. It's funny how much energy we spend defending an identity. We say, I'm this kind of person, or I could never do that. But who decided that? Who are we trying to prove it to? The truth is, every moment you wake up, you're new. Every breath gives you another chance to see differently, to love differently, to live differently. But most of the time, we don't notice that because we're busy chasing an old picture of ourselves, a version we outgrew long ago. Have you ever sat quietly, maybe early in the morning when the world's still half asleep, and felt that subtle sense of just being? No thoughts to explain it, no story to frame it, just being in those moments. There's no need to fix yourself or become someone better. There's just peace, a stillness that doesn't need a reason. And when you feel that, even for a second, you realize that maybe this is what we've been searching for the whole time. Not meaning, not success, not even happiness. Just this deep, ordinary aliveness. The Buddha wasn't trying to tell us to abandon our lives or become detached from the world. He was pointing us back to this space, this gentle awareness that's always here. It's not cold or distant. It's full of compassion, like a soft light that shines on everything without judgment. When you rest in that space, you stop fighting with what is. You stop blaming yourself or others for the way life moves. You start to see that even your struggles are part of something sacred. Sometimes people hear the word no self and think it means nothing matters. But the truth is the opposite. When you stop seeing yourself as separate, everything matters even more. The pain of another person, the laughter of a child, the sound of rain on a window, they all become your own heartbeat because there's no boundary anymore. The wall between you and the world begins to dissolve, and what's left is intimacy, the kind that can't be faked or taught, the kind that just happens when the heart opens. And yet, we keep running back to the story. We keep trying to be someone, maybe because it feels safe, maybe because we think we'll disappear without it. But what if it's okay to let the story rest for a while? What if, for just a moment, you stop trying to be anyone and let life breathe through you without resistance? It doesn't mean you'll lose yourself. It means you'll finally meet the part of you that was never lost. You see, the one behind your eyes isn't a person. It's presence. It's that stillness that notices every thought, every feeling, every sound. You can't see it, you can't name it, but you can feel it. In the quiet spaces between your thoughts, in the softness that follows a deep sigh. It's the same awareness that looked out from your eyes when you were a child, the same one that looks now, even though everything else has changed. When you begin to live from that space, something beautiful happens. You stop needing life to go your way. You start trusting the flow. You stop chasing meaning and start tasting it in every moment. In a smile, a mistake, a cup of tea. You realize that even the hard days are part of the same river. And when you let it carry you, life becomes lighter. Not because it's easy, but because you're no longer swimming against it. There's a quiet courage in that. The courage to be nothing special. To not have to prove your worth. To let yourself simply exist. The world keeps shouting that you have to become someone important, that you have to leave a mark. But maybe the real mark is left by how gently you move through it all, how softly you walk on this earth, how much you love, even when no one's watching. When I talk about this, I don't mean it like a lesson. I'm not here to teach anything. I just think maybe we've all felt that same ache, that same whisper that says there must be more to who we are than the noise in our heads. And there is. But you won't find it by thinking harder or trying to be spiritual. You'll find it by stopping for a moment, by breathing, by listening to the silence that's been with you all along. So maybe tonight, when you're alone, you could try something small. Sit down, close your eyes, and instead of asking, "Who am I?" try asking who's listening. Don't look for an answer. Just listen. Maybe what you find isn't a word, but a feeling. Maybe it's not a person at all, but a presence. That quiet watcher behind your eyes. It's not separate from the world. It's the same life looking back at itself through every pair of eyes, through every sunrise, through every breath. And when you start to sense that, even for a heartbeat, the fear begins to fade. You stop feeling so alone, because you realize you were never just a person trying to figure life out. You were life, all along trying to remember itself. If you're still here, still listening, maybe that means it's touched something real inside you. You ever notice that little silence between your thoughts? That soft, quiet space that shows up before the next word forms in your mind? Most of us rush past it. We're so used to chasing the noise inside our heads that we don't realize something beautiful lives underneath it. It's like standing at the edge of a lake on a windless morning. The water perfectly still. The world reflected so clearly you can't tell where the sky ends and the reflection begins. That silence, that's where your real self rests. Not the person you imagine, not the one you describe to others, but the awareness that watches it all unfold. I remember once sitting in a park, watching a small leaf spin in circles on the ground. It was such a small thing, but for a moment, I forgot everything else. I wasn't me anymore with worries and plans. There was just watching, just presence. And when that happens, something in you softens. You stop trying to manage life and you just melt into it. The thoughts still come, of course, but they lose their sharp edges. They float by like clouds instead of storms. That's what this path is really about. Learning to rest in that space between thoughts. It's not about forcing your mind to stop or trying to become perfectly calm. It's about noticing that peace is already there, waiting underneath the noise, like the ocean beneath the waves. It's always still, no matter how wild the surface gets. Sometimes, when you first start paying attention, it feels strange. You might notice how busy your mind really is, jumping from one worry to another, replaying conversations, imagining futures that haven't even happened yet. It can feel like you're standing in a crowded room, everyone talking at once. But slowly, as you breathe and keep noticing, something happens. The voices quiet down. The noise fades into background. And in that space, you begin to sense something deeper, a gentle awareness that's been there all along, watching without judgment. You might realize that this awareness doesn't belong to you. It's not your awareness. It's just awareness. The same one that hears the rain, that feels the warmth of sunlight, that listens to music and feels it deep in the chest. It's not personal. It doesn't have a name. It doesn't need one. It's the same stillness that lives behind every pair of eyes, the same silence inside every heartbeat. And maybe that's why the Buddha called it anatta, no self. Not because you don't exist, but because what you call you was never separate in the first place. The thoughts that pass through your mind aren't you. The emotions that rise and fall aren't you. They're like waves, beautiful, alive, but temporary. What you are is the ocean itself, vast, deep, and calm beneath it all. I think sometimes we're scared to let go of the noise because it's all we've ever known. We think that if we stop clinging to thoughts and stories, we'll disappear. But the truth is, it's the opposite. When you stop identifying with every wave, you finally start to feel the sea. You begin to taste the freedom of not having to be someone all the time. You realize that maybe it's okay not to always know, not to always control. Maybe it's okay to let life move through you gently, naturally. I used to think awareness was something you had to practice, something to earn through meditation or wisdom. But now I see it simpler than that. Awareness isn't something you do. It's something you are. It's there when you laugh. It's there when you cry. It's there when you make mistakes. And when you try again, it never leaves. Even when you're lost in thought, awareness is still there, quietly noticing that you're lost. And that changes everything. Because once you realize you're not your thoughts, you stop being so afraid of them. You can see anger without becoming anger. You can feel sadness without drowning in it. You can notice fear without running away. Each feeling just passes through like weather, and you, the sky, remain untouched. It doesn't mean life stops hurting. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It just means you're free to care without losing yourself in the pain. You can love deeply without needing to own anyone. You can fail without making it mean that you are a failure. You can breathe in the chaos of the world and still know peace underneath it. When you really sit with yourself, when the phone is down, the world is quiet, and there's nothing left to distract you, you might begin to sense it. That small gap between one thought and the next. That flicker of stillness that no words can reach. It's not empty. It's full. Full of life. Full of everything. That's the space all things come from and return to. It's the space where you began. And the more time you spend resting there, the less trapped you feel in the story of me. You start to see that everything that happens, the good, the bad, the heartbreak, the joy, all of it is part of the same unfolding, the same dance of awareness expressing itself in a million forms. You start living with a kind of quiet trust, knowing that whatever rises will fall, and whatever falls will rise again. It's not something you figure out in your head. It's something you feel in your heart. The moment you stop trying to understand it and just breathe, it's already there. You've been it the whole time. Maybe tonight, when things slow down, you can try this. Just sit for a moment. Let your breath move in and out naturally. Don't force anything. Don't push away your thoughts. Just notice them. Notice how they appear and disappear, how none of them stay for long. And between each one, notice the silence, that tiny pause where the world feels open and still. Stay there, even for a second. That's home. And if this way of listening feels like a gentle reminder to you, like something in you has been waiting to hear it, then stay close. Subscribe. If you haven't already, not for me, but for this space we're building together. A place where we can breathe, reflect, and remember what it feels like to simply be. Because sometimes the quietest truths are the ones that bring us back to life. Maybe you've been searching for peace for a long time. Maybe you've read books, gone to retreats, tried to meditate the right way. But peace isn't something you find. It's something that's been sitting patiently beneath your thoughts, waiting for you to notice. There comes a moment in every quiet journey when you realize something simple, yet impossible to put into words. All this time, you've been trying to be someone good enough, kind enough, wise enough, healed enough. You've been trying to fix yourself, to understand yourself, to make your life fit into some picture of peace. But one day, you just get tired tired of the chase, tired of carrying that invisible weight. And in that moment, maybe for the first time, you just stop. You let go, not in defeat, but in surrender. You stop trying to be someone, and that's when life starts breathing again. It's funny, isn't it? We spend years trying to find ourselves. But what if there was never a solid self to find? What if we've been like waves trying to find the ocean, not realizing we've been the ocean all along? The Buddha once said, "In the seen, only the seen. In the herd, only the herd." It sounds poetic, but what he really meant was, stop adding a story to every moment. When you look at a flower, there's just seeing. When you hear a bird, there's just hearing. There doesn't need being I doing it. Awareness doesn't need a name tag to function. Sometimes I think about how we live, always narrating everything in our heads. I'm doing this. I'm thinking that I'm not good enough. I should try harder. It's like living life from a small room behind a window, always one step removed from what's actually happening. But the truth is, life doesn't need our commentary. It doesn't need our approval. It's already perfect in its unfolding, messy, unpredictable, beautiful. When you stop trying to be the one in charge of life, you start to notice that life takes care of itself. Maybe you've had those moments, standing by the ocean, watching the sunset, or laughing so hard that time disappears. In those moments, you weren't thinking, I am enjoying this. There was just joy, just being. That's what it's like when someone in your head steps aside. The world becomes clearer, softer. You start to see not from behind your eyes, but through them, without a center, without a watcher, just seeing, hearing, feeling, life living itself through you. I once met a monk who told me something I never forgot. He said, the mind doesn't need a manager. At first, I laughed. It sounded too simple. But years later, I realized what he meant. We spend so much time trying to control our thoughts, our emotions, our circumstances, as if we're the CEO of existence. But awareness doesn't need to be managed. It doesn't need to be told how to breathe, how to love, how to be. The trees don't ask for permission to grow. The river doesn't plan its path. And yet everything flows perfectly. So why do we think we're any different? When you stop trying to manage life, a strange peace appears. It's not a lazy peace. It's not that you stop caring. It's that you care without the tight grip of control. You start to see that things move on their own. People come and go. Emotions rise and fade. Problems appear and dissolve. You don't have to be the author of every story. You can just be the page it's written on. That realization doesn't happen all at once. It sneaks up on you in small moments of stillness. When you realize you're no longer fighting the moment you're in, you're just in it, fully, completely. And in those moments, there's no separation between you and life. There's just life happening, effortlessly. But here's the beautiful twist. When you stop trying to be someone, what remains isn't nothing. It's everything. Without the boundaries of me and mine, you start to feel connected to everything around you. The wind feels like it's part of your breath. The laughter of a stranger feels like it echoes in your own chest. The world stops being something you live in and becomes something you are. This isn't some mystical idea. It's as ordinary as your next breath. Think about when you hold someone you love, a friend, a child, someone dear. For a moment, all that exists is that connection. The sense of I disappears, and what's left is warmth, love, presence. That's awareness without the me. That's what the Buddha was pointing to, not an escape from the world, but a return to it. Of course, the mind will come back. It always does. It will say, that was nice, but I need to get back to my problems. And that's okay. Let it. You don't have to fight it. You don't have to stay in some perfect state of awareness. This isn't about becoming enlightened. It's about becoming real, letting life be as it is, without the constant need to edit or explain it. When we let go of being someone, we also let go of so much fear. Fear of what people think, fear of failing, fear of not being enough. Because all those fears belong to the story of me. When that story quiets down, fear has nowhere to land. What's left is openness, a gentle readiness to meet life as it comes. And maybe that's what freedom really means. Not floating above the world, but walking through it lightly, without that heavy armor of identity. You can still love, still dream, still make mistakes. You just don't have to take them so personally. You start to move like water, adapting, flowing, resting when needed. If you ever wonder what peace feels like, maybe it's this: the soften beneath all your trying, the quiet in the middle of every breath, the space that never needed to be fixed because it was never broken. It's not a big revelation. It's not fireworks or angels singing. It's the sound of everything finally being okay, even when it isn't perfect. So if this feels true for you, stay a while. Let's keep walking together. Maybe subscribe. Maybe listen again later when the world feels heavy. Sometimes, hearing the same truth at a different moment changes everything. Because the truth doesn't live in words. It lives in the silence between them. And the more you rest there, the more you realize life doesn't need you to be someone. It just needs you to be here. There's a moment on this path when something subtle but powerful happens. You start to feel that you finally understand. You think, I get it now, there is no self. And for a little while, it feels freeing, even thrilling. You look around at people still chasing identity and think, I used to be like that. But soon, if you listen carefully, you'll notice a small whisper in the back of your mind. I'm the one who understands there is no self. And just like that, the ego quietly puts on new clothes. It doesn't disappear. It just becomes spiritual. I've seen it happen in others, and I've seen it in myself. That little pride that sneaks in when you think you've seen through it all. It's funny. The mind doesn't really mind hearing that as an illusion, as long as it can still be the one who knows it. The Buddha warned about this. He called it the final trap, the self disguising itself as the one who's awakened, like a snake shedding its skin only to discover it's still a snake underneath. You see, even no self can become another belief to cling to, another identity. We can wear it like a badge, thinking we're beyond attachment, beyond illusion. But the truth is, the moment we hold on to anything, even truth itself, we're caught again. The Buddha once gave a simple image. He said the Dharma is like a raft. You use it to cross the river of suffering. But once you reach the other side, you don't carry it on your back. You leave it behind. And that's what this teaching really is. Not a possession, not a title, not a belief system. It's a tool, a way to see through the layers we build around ourselves. The moment we start thinking, I've made it, that's when we've stopped moving. That's when the stillness becomes stagnant instead of free. I remember talking to a woman once who had been meditating for years. She told me she felt disappointed because, even after all her practice, anger still visited her sometimes. She said, "Shouldn't I be past this by now?" I smiled and told her, maybe you are not past it, but maybe you've stopped being trapped by it. That's the difference. Enlightenment isn't about never feeling pain or anger again. It's about not turning those moments into a story of me. It's about seeing them rise and fade without trying to own them. That's the beauty of true understanding. It's humble. It doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't stand on a stage. It just quietly lives. When you stop needing to be right, you start to feel light. When you stop needing to be someone who knows, you finally make space to just be. Maybe that's why the Buddha kept saying, don't cling even to the truth, because the truth isn't something you hold. It's something that holds you. It's not a thought. It's not a conclusion. It's more like a breeze that passes through when your hands are open. But the moment you try to grab it, it slips away. So if you ever find yourself thinking, I finally understand, maybe pause for a moment. Take a breath. Smile. And let that thought pass too. Because the understanding you can describe isn't the real one. The real thing doesn't live in words. It lives in silence. In that still, wordless awareness where there's no one left to claim anything. Sometimes people worry that if they let go of their beliefs, even the good ones, they'll be lost. But it's the opposite. When you let go of needing to have truth, you become available to truth. It starts to move through you, in your words, in your kindness, in the way you see the world. You stop trying to prove your understanding, and you just live it. Think of it like the wind. You don't have to control the wind or capture it in your hands. You just open your arms and feel it move. That's what awareness does when you stop clinging. It breathes through you. It speaks softly through your actions, through your silence, through your love. And that's the thing most people miss. Awakening is an achievement. It's not the end of the road. It's the beginning of a new kind of living. One where you don't need to be special or right or certain. You can be simple, human, open. Sometimes, the most awakened people you'll ever meet won't talk about awakening at all. They'll just sit with you, listen, smile, and somehow you'll feel lighter around them. That's the real teaching. Presence without agenda. Compassion without pride. Knowing without needing to show it. It takes courage to let go of even the things that seem sacred. Your beliefs, your understanding, your sense of progress. But that's where the real freedom begins. When there's nothing left to defend, nothing to protect, you finally start to breathe easily. You start to feel how vast life really is. And maybe that's what the Buddha meant when he said, even the Dharma must be abandoned. Because the goal was never to hold on to a perfect view. It was to let go completely. The teachings are medicine, not decoration. They heal, they guide, they soothe. But once the healing happens, you don't carry the bottle around your neck. You bow to it with gratitude, and then you walk on. So maybe tonight, as you lie in bed and your mind starts to wander, you can smile and remind yourself, you don't have to get it all right. You don't need to be someone who understands. You just need to rest in the not knowing. Because that's where truth loves to show up, not in the certainty of the mind, but in the openness of the heart. And if this way of seeing feels like a breath of fresh air, maybe stay close. Subscribe if you haven't, so we can keep exploring this together. Not to collect ideas, but to unlearn the ones that keep us small. Because the more you let go of what you think you are, the closer you get to what's been here all along, the quiet, simple peace of just being. You know that feeling when you're just sitting quietly, maybe by a window, watching the rain slide down glass, and for a moment, everything goes still? There's no rush, no story running in your head, no you trying to fix or figure out anything. Just the sound of rain, the soft light, the gentle rhythm of breathing. In that moment, awareness is there, but there's no one behind it. It's just seeing happening. That's what this next part of the journey is about. Seeing without a seer. It sounds strange, doesn't it? Because all our lives we've been taught that there's always a me doing the seeing, a person behind the eyes, a mind controlling the thoughts, a self making choices. But when you really start to pay attention, not as a concept, but as a living, breathing experience, you begin to notice something subtle. You see that sights appear, sounds arise, feelings come and go, but the one who's supposed to be behind them never quite shows up. If you close your eyes right now and listen, maybe you'll hear a fan humming, a bird outside, or your own heartbeat. Each sound appears naturally, without anyone choosing it. You don't say, "I will now hear this sound." Hearing just happens. The breath moves in and out on its own. Thoughts come and go, like waves rolling in and out of the shore. It's all so natural, so effortless, and yet we keep trying to place a me in the middle of it, as if someone must be doing it all. But maybe there isn't. Maybe the one who's been trying to control everything is just another wave in that ocean, another appearance, not the ocean itself. And maybe that's why we feel tired so often, why we're always trying to fix or find ourselves. Because we're chasing something that was never separate to begin with. It's a little like trying to find the center of a rainbow. You can see it, you can admire it, but you can't ever reach it because it doesn't exist as a solid thing. It's just light playing with water and air. The self is like that, a play of memory, thought, and feeling. It's beautiful, mysterious, but not something you can grasp. When you begin to sense this, even for a brief moment, something softens inside. You realize you don't have to hold the world together. You don't have to hold yourself together. Life is already happening. Breathing, thinking, feeling, all on its own. And the more you stop trying to manage it, the more it flows naturally. There's a deep peace in that realization. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's the kind of peace that hums quietly in the background, like the earth beneath your feet. It doesn't need to prove itself. It's just there, supporting everything. Sometimes people worry that if there's no self, then life must lose meaning. But what really happens is the opposite. When the illusion of the seer fades, everything becomes more alive. The colors are brighter. Laughter feels lighter. Love becomes cleaner, not tied to possession or fear. You don't love someone because they make you whole. You love because love itself wants to move. You start to notice that kindness isn't something you do. It's something that arises naturally, like sunlight touching everything without asking for permission. You listen more deeply, you speak more gently, and you stop needing to win. There's nothing to defend when there's no you under attack. Maybe that's what freedom really is, not the power control life, but the relief of not needing to. You wake up in the morning and realize the world doesn't depend on your thoughts to keep spinning. The sun rises, birds sing, the wind moves through the trees, all without your effort. And somehow, knowing that makes you love it all even more. It's like the universe is whispering, "See, you were never separate from me. You were never watching life from behind your eyes. You are life, looking at itself. And once you sense that, even for a heartbeat, it changes the way you move through the world. You walk slower. You breathe easier. You forgive faster. Because the line between you and everything else starts to blur, and in that blur, compassion blooms. You stop trying to fix yourself because you realize you were never broken. You stop chasing enlightenment because the one chasing was never real. You simply rest. And in that rest, the deepest seeing unfolds, the kind of seeing that doesn't belong to anyone. Just seeing, just being. And maybe that's all we've ever been looking for, a place where we can finally stop searching. Not because we found the perfect answer, but because we've seen that there was never a separate search to begin with. Life was never asking you to figure it out. It was just asking you to live it fully, openly, without resistance. So as you listen now, maybe take a slow breath in. Let it go softly. Feel how natural that is. You didn't have to try. You didn't have to be anyone. You just had to be still enough to notice that life has always been breathing for you. And if these words make something inside you relax, if they make you feel a little closer to peace, maybe stay. Subscribe if you like. Not for the sake of collecting ideas, but so we can keep walking together gently, quietly, into that simple space where seeing needs no seer and being needs no name. There's a kind of love that doesn't hurt. A love that doesn't demand, doesn't cling, doesn't measure what it gets in return. It's rare, not because it's far away, but because we've forgotten how to love without holding on. We've mistaken attachment for care, control for safety, and desire for devotion. But when the illusion of me starts to fade, when the seer disappears and only seeing remains, something beautiful happens to love. It becomes softer, freer, quieter, and infinitely deeper. You start to realize that love isn't something you do. It's not something you give or receive. It's what remains when there's no one left to take credit for it. Like sunlight, it just shines. It doesn't choose who to warm. It doesn't keep score. It simply moves naturally because that's its nature. In the beginning, we fall in love with the way someone makes us feel. We cling to them, hoping they'll keep filling that empty space inside. And when they can't, because no one ever truly can, we call a heartbreak. But heartbreak isn't a punishment. It's life trying to open us. It's life saying, you were never meant to own what was only meant to be experienced. When you see through the illusion of the self, love shifts from being a transaction to a presence. It's no longer, I love you. It's just love, flowing freely. You may still care deeply, still laugh, still cry, still want to hold someone close. But beneath it all, there's no fear of losing, because you see that love was never inside you to begin with. It was always what you are. I remember a man once told me, after his wife passed away, that he felt her love more vividly than ever. She's not here, he said, but somehow she is. That's what happens when love is freed from ownership. It doesn't vanish with the body. It becomes part of the air, the silence, the warmth you feel in your chest for no reason at all. Maybe real love is like music. You can't hold a song, but you can let it move through you. You can close your eyes, listen, and let it change the way your heart beats for a while. And when the song ends, you don't try to trap it. You just sit in the quiet that follows, grateful for having heard it all. When the me fades away, relationships don't disappear, they deepen. Because you stop trying to make others fit into the story of your life. You see them for who they are, not what they give you. You listen more. You argue less. You stop needing to win, because you realize there's no one to defend, and nothing worth losing when everything is already shared. That kind of love doesn't need constant reassurance. It doesn't come from fear. It grows from stillness, from the understanding that every person you meet, every friend, every stranger, is just another wave in the same ocean that you are. And when you touch them, you're really touching yourself. So love changes. It becomes gentler, more patient, less dramatic. It doesn't rush to fix. It doesn't suffocate. It simply allows. You start to love like the sky holds clouds, freely, spaciously, knowing they'll come and go. Sometimes they'll darken. Sometimes they'll pour rain. Sometimes they'll disappear into a clear blue. But the sky never resists. It never clings. It just remains wide open. That's what awakening does to love. It turns it into presence, into care that doesn't need recognition, into kindness that doesn't wear a label. You start to love the world quietly. A stray cat, a tired face on the bus, a moment of silence before sunrise. And that love, because it's not built on fear, doesn't fade. You realize you don't need to be loved back to love fully, because the heart, when it's no longer trapped inside a me, has no limit. It can hold everything, joy, loss, distance, closeness, without breaking. And when you can love like that, even your pain becomes sacred, because you see that pain, too, is love try to show you how open you can be. Sometimes when I sit alone at night, I think about how many times I've mistaken love for something smaller, a comfort, a security, a possession, and then I smile, because even those mistakes were part of the learning. Even that grasping was love trying to remember itself. It's all been love, all along. And maybe that's what this whole path leads to, not to emptiness as we fear it, but to fullness. A fullness that doesn't need to take, doesn't need to prove. A fullness that simply overflows. If you've ever loved someone so deeply that it scared you, maybe that was life showing you what's possible when the walls drop, when love stops belonging to you or them and just exists vast, tender, eternal. So maybe tonight, don't try to understand love. Don't try to define it or protect it. Just sit quietly, breathe, and let it be what it already is, the quiet pulse that's been carrying you from the very beginning. And if this way of seeing touches something inside you, stay a while. Subscribe if you haven't yet, not out of habit, but as a small act of saying, yes, I want to keep remembering what love really is. Because together, maybe we can keep uncovering that gentle space where love doesn't cling, doesn't own, doesn't end. It just keeps flowing. There's a moment, if you sit quietly enough, when the air feels still and time seems to hold its breath. Maybe it's at dawn when the world hasn't yet woken up, or late at night when everything has gone silent. In that stillness, you can almost feel it, that soft, endless rhythm of life and death moving together, like the tide rolling in and out. Not two things, just one continuous motion of being and letting go. We've been taught to fear death, to see it as something dark, final, cruel, something that steals from us. People, dreams, time. But what if death isn't taking anything? What if it's just giving everything back? Like the ocean taking back a wave that had momentarily taken form. The wave doesn't die. It just stops pretending to be separate. It returns home. When you begin to see through the illusion of me, death starts to look different. It's not an intruder anymore. It's not the opposite of life. It's part of it, inseparable, necessary, sacred. Just like exhaling after you inhale. We call it the end, but maybe it's just the next breath of the universe. I remember once sitting beside someone who was dying. There was no fear in her eyes, just a softness, a deep peace. She whispered, "It feels like I'm falling back into something warm." That sentence has never left me. Falling back into something warm. Maybe that's what it really is. A return to what we've always been. We come into this world crying because we've forgotten where we came from. And maybe we leave in silence because finally we remember when you stop seeing yourself as a fixed person and start sensing yourself as awareness. Vast, endless, formless. Death loses its sharp edge. Because how can awareness die? The body changes, yes. The mind quiets. The memories fade. But what you truly are, that still presence behind the eyes, that quiet watcher who never grows older, it was never born and it never leaves. Think about it. The same awareness that looked out from your eyes as a child is the same one looking out now. The thoughts, the body, the roles, they've all changed. But you, that silent witness, haven't. That awareness has always been here, steady, untouched. And maybe death is just a moment when awareness lets go of the dream completely. Like waking up from a long, beautiful story. You don't mourn the dream. You just open your eyes and realize you were never lost. I know it's hard when someone you love dies. The absence feels unbearable. You walk into a room, and the air feels wrong without their laughter in it. That's part of love, too, the ache of remembering. But if you sit with that ache long enough, it softens. It starts to shimmer like sunlight on water, because what you're missing isn't gone. It's just changed shape. The love you shared doesn't vanish. It becomes a quiet in your chest, the calm in your breath, the warmth that rises when you think of them. Love doesn't die because love was never something personal. It's the essence of everything. Maybe that's why, when someone passes, the world feels a little more tender for a while. The sunlight feels softer. The silence feels deeper. It's as if life itself is bowing, reminding us that nothing truly ends. It only transforms. The Buddha once said that clinging to what changes is suffering. And nowhere do we feel that more than in the face of death. But the moment we let go, even a little, something extraordinary happens. The pain begins to turn into gratitude. Gratitude that we got to love it all. Gratitude that we were given a piece of eternity to hold, even if just for a moment. Maybe death isn't an enemy, but an invitation. An invitation to see how every moment, even this one, is a kind of dying. The breath you just took will never return. The word you just heard will fade into silence. And yet, life keeps flowing. Each ending makes space for the next beginning. When you truly see that, fear starts to loosen its grip. You begin to live differently. You stop rushing. You stop postponing joy. You start saying, I love you more. Because you know nothing is promised, and somehow that makes everything sacred. Death teaches us how to live. It shows us what matters, not success, not approval, not control, but presence, connection, kindness, the simple grace of being here now. So maybe when the time comes for you, for me, for the people we love, it won't be something to run from. It'll be like slipping into sleep after a long day, trusting that whatever comes next isn't darkness, but rest. Not ending, but return. And if this way of seeing brings you a little peace, if it makes you breathe a bit softer tonight, then maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all awakening ever meant. Not to escape death, but to see through it, to recognize it as the most natural, loving gesture of life itself. If you'd like to keep walking through these reflections together, subscribe if you haven't yet, not out of habit, but as a quiet promise to stay open, to keep remembering that even endings can be beautiful when we stop fighting them. You know, the strangest thing happens when you start to really let go of the idea of a solid me. Life doesn't fall apart. It actually becomes lighter. Things that use a sting don't cut so deep. The pressure to prove, to win, to always be somebody starts to fade, like fog burning off in the morning sun. You stop walking around like you're carrying a heavy backpack filled with stories about who you are, what people think of you, and what you need to become. Suddenly, there's space. You can breathe. I used to think freedom was about having choices, places to go, things to buy, goals to chase. But it turns out real freedom is much quieter. It's the space that opens inside when you no longer have to defend anything. When you can look at a mistake and say, yeah, that happened, without shame. When you can listen to someone else's pain without needing to fix it. When you can walk through a hard day and whisper to yourself, it's okay. I don't need to be anyone right now. That's what living without the weight of me feels like. It's not that life becomes perfect. It's that perfection stops mattering. You begin to move through the world like water, soft but unstoppable. You stop fighting to control what you can't, and instead, you start flowing with what is. I remember once watching an old man sweeping the sidewalk outside his tiny house. The broom was worn, the handle taped together, but he swept with such care, like each leaf mattered. I asked him, "Why do you clean so often?" He smiled and said, "I'm not cleaning the street. I'm cleaning my mind." That moment stayed with me. He wasn't trying to be someone, not wise, not spiritual, not impressive. He was just present, sweeping, breathing, living. And that's the secret, isn't it? Life doesn't ask us to become extraordinary. It just asks us to be fully here. When we stop making everything about me, we start noticing how alive the world really is. The sound of rain on a tin roof, the smell of coffee in the morning, the way sunlight lands on someone's hair when they laugh. These small things stop being background noise. They become the point. The Buddha once said, "In the scene, only the scene." I think what he meant was, don't add yourself to everything. Don't turn every sound, every feeling, every story into a reflection of who you think you are. Just let it be. Let life show itself to you. Because the moment you stop inserting me into everything, reality starts to breathe again. There's such peace in ordinary moments when you're not clinging to identity. You can sit in traffic without burning up inside. You can wash dishes and actually enjoy the warm water on your hands. You can even listen to criticism without shrinking or fighting. Because when you realize there's no solid you to protect, there's nothing left to hurt. The moment just comes and goes, and you stay untouched, like the sky watching clouds pass by. And here's something beautiful. Compassion starts to grow naturally. Not because you're trying to be kind, but because you finally see there's no real separation between you and anyone else. Their pain feels like your pain, not out of pity, but out of recognition. You start to feel less like a person in the world, and more like the world looking through a person. Maybe that's what awakening really is. Not a lightning bolt or a sudden miracle, but a slow, gentle softening. A gradual dissolving of the walls we've built around our hearts. You stop living from the story of who you think you should be and start living from presence, raw, tender, and real. And when you live this way, gratitude sneaks in. For no reason. You might be sitting alone at your kitchen table, the light fading, a cup of tea cooling in your hands, and suddenly you just feel thankful. Not for anything specific, but for everything, for being alive at all. It's funny how when the self gets quiet, love gets loud. You start to see beauty in places you never noticed before, in wrinkles, in silence, in the smell of old books, in the sound of your child calling your name. You stop looking for meaning in faraway places and realize it's right here, in this very breath. So maybe living without the weight of me isn't about losing something. It's about remembering what was always here. That gentle awareness behind your eyes. That space inside your chest that expands when you stop holding on. That presence that doesn't need a name, a story, or a purpose. Just this. If this kind of softness speaks to you, stay here with me. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Not for numbers or algorithms, but because maybe you and I are walking the same quiet road towards something simple and true. A life not owned by a self, but lived by awareness itself. And now we come to the quietest part, the part that doesn't need words, the place where even awareness itself begins to dissolve. You know, sometimes when you're really still, really listening, even the sense of I am here watching fades. The breath, the heartbeat, the thoughts, they're still there, yes, but the watcher who used to claim them, gone. It's like waking up from a dream and realizing you were never the dreamer. This is where the journey takes its final turn. Not to somewhere new, not to a goal or a prize, but to the simple fact of being, just this moment, just this quiet, ungraspable now. No one is looking, no one is trying, life just is. And somehow, when you allow yourself to settle here, everything becomes enough. Not perfect, not explained, just enough. It's almost too subtle to notice. You might sit for a while and wonder, am I still here? Who is noticing this? And then slowly, gently you realize there is no one missing either. The space that remains isn't empty. It's full in a way that you can't name, can't measure. Full of sunlight, full of sound, full of all the life you've ever experienced. And all of it flows without anyone needing to hold it. When the seeker disappears, when the I dissolves into the moment, something extraordinary happens. There's no longer a burden of becoming, of proving, of understanding. There's just life. Pure, simple, effortless. Decisions arise naturally. Compassion arises naturally. Joy arises naturally. And the little tragedies, the small worries, they no longer hook you. They move through like clouds over an endless sky. I remember watching a young child laughing in the park. She wasn't thinking, I am laughing. She wasn't trying to make anyone notice. She simply laughed, and the laughter filled the air. That's the kind of being I think the Buddha wanted us to remember. Life, alive and awake, without a self managing it, without anyone trying to contain it, just flowing, free, tender. And maybe that's the lesson of all of this. Not that you have to become someone else. Not that you need to meditate for years or read every teaching. But that you can pause, soften, and notice that the I you've carried so faithfully your whole life, the one who plans, worries, hopes, defends, and judges, was never solid. It was just a pattern, a gentle story, a passing fragrance of awareness. And now, even that story can rest. When you rest, the world shifts. Colors feel richer, voices feel warmer, life feels lighter. The little annoyances no longer press so heavily. The soft joys, a bird landing outside your window, the smell of rain on concrete, the hand of someone you love brushing yours, become miracles again. And you realize slowly that all along there was nothing to find, nothing to gain, nothing to hold, just this breathing, noticing being. If you take anything from these reflections, maybe let it be this. The search doesn't have an end, and yet it already has. Awareness, life, love, they've been here all along, waiting quietly for you to see that you were never separate, never missing, never lacking, just here. So tonight, maybe close your eyes, take a soft breath, and feel that. Let yourself rest in it, not as a meditation, not as a practice, just as life itself, free, open, and whole. If these words have touched you even a little, consider subscribing, not for the sake of learning, but as a quiet reminder that there's a space here to return to, a gentle presence, a soft story, a life lived fully without needing anyone behind the eyes to watch it. Because in the end, there never was. And yet, here we are, fully, simply, wonderfully alive.